The wind howled outside the wooden cabin, shaking the windows like angry hands. Snow covered everything, and the forest was silent under the white blanket. Jake sat near the fireplace, holding a hot mug of coffee. It had been 3 weeks since. He saw another human. He liked this peace, away from city noise and people. No phones, no traffic. Just trees, cold and quiet. But that night, something felt wrong. He couldn't explain it. But the air felt heavy, like the forest was holding its breath. Then came the sound of a knock, soft but clear. Jake stood up slowly, confused. No one ever came here. Not by accident, another knock. This time faster, desperate. He opened the door, and cold air rushed in, biting his skin. But no one was there. He looked around, snow falling gently under the moonlight. Then he saw a faint trail of red on the white snow, blood, leading to the side of the cabin. Jake stepped out with his boots, crunching the snow. He followed the trail around the cabin to the back door and locked it. His heart began to race. He grabbed the old hunting knife from the wall and stepped inside carefully. The fire crackled, casting shadows across the floor. And then he saw something move near the dark corner by the storage shelf. He raised the knife, voice firm. "Who's there?" No answer, just soft breathing, almost like a whimper. He took a step closer. That's when he saw her, a woman crouched low in the corner, her clothes torn and wet. Her silver hair clung to her face, and her eyes glowing faintly blue looked up at him, wide and afraid. She raised her hands slowly, trembling. "Please, don't hurt me," she whispered in a voice that wasn't quite human. Her accent was strange, her tone soft like music. Jake froze, knife still in hand. He didn't know what he was looking at. Was this a prank? A crazy person? Or something worse? The woman didn't move. She seemed more scared than dangerous. Blood dripped from a wound on her leg, glowing faintly like the edge of a star. That glow wasn't normal. Jake lowered the knife, still watching her. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said carefully. "Are you human?" She shook her head slowly, tears in her glowing eyes. "No," she said, "I'm not." Jake backed away, breathing hard. "What are you doing here?" he asked. She tried to speak, but coughed, her body shaking. "I was running," she said. "They're chasing me." "Who?" "I don't know the words." "Hunters." From the sky, Jake looked at her closely. Now he saw her ears were pointed slightly. Her skin had a faint shimmer. Not makeup, not tricks. This woman wasn't from Earth. She was an alien, real, and in pain, hiding in his cabin in the middle of nowhere. Jake wasn't a hero. Not a soldier or scientist. He was just a man who came to the forest to be alone. And now, the universe had knocked on his door. The woman looked at the fire, her lips turning blue from cold. Jake moved slowly, picked up a blanket, and tossed it to her. She caught it with weak hands and wrapped herself tight. "Thank you," she whispered. Voice shaking, Jake sat back in his chair, not taking his eyes off her. "If someone's coming, we need to talk," he said. The woman nodded slowly. "I'll tell you everything, but please, don't give me to them." She looked at him, tears falling down her glowing cheeks. "They'll kill me." Outside, the wind blew harder. But inside the cabin, something bigger had just begun. A human and an alien woman, both strangers. Both trapped by the cold, and both about to change each other's lives forever. Jake didn't sleep that night. He sat by the fire. His eyes locked on the strange woman curled up in the blanket. She hadn't said much after that first moment of fear. Now she rested on the floor near the fireplace, her breathing slow but uneasy. Jake's shotgun sat on the table next to him, just in case. He didn't know if she was dangerous or if something worse was coming for her. The snowstorm outside had turned worse. Winds screamed like wolves, shaking the wooden walls. Of the cabin, the small radio crackled with static, no signal. No news, just the storm. Jake leaned back in his chair and sighed. "What the hell did I get into?" he whispered to himself. At sunrise, the cabin was still. The woman stirred, her silver hair catching the morning light. Jake poured her a cup of hot water and walked over. She flinched as he got close, her glowing eyes watching him closely. He crouched and offered the cup slowly. "I said I wouldn't hurt you," he said, "and I meant it." She took the cup with both hands, her fingers shaking from cold and weakness. "My name is Jake," he added. "What's yours?" She hesitated, then spoke softly. "Sarah," she said. Her voice almost like a whisper in the wind. "Sarah," he repeated. "All right." She looked around, clearly still scared. "Where is this place?" she asked. "My cabin, middle of nowhere," Jake replied. "Montana, Earth." Sarah's eyes blinked. The name Earth seemed to sting her memory. She nodded slowly. "I didn't know where I would land," she said. "I was trying to escape." Jake sat across from her on a wooden stool. "From what?" he asked. Sarah looked down at her cup, not answering at first. Then she rolled up her torn sleeve and showed him her arm. A strange glowing symbol pulsed just under her skin, looked like a brand or tattoo. "They marked me," she said. "They said I was dangerous, that I should be erased." Jake frowned. "Why? What did you do?" Sarah looked up at him, her eyes shining with sadness. "I said no to a war." She said that was enough. Jake didn't know what to say to that. He looked at the mark again, curious and cautious. "Can they track you with this?" Sarah nodded. "Yes." Jake stood up, thinking fast. "If they're coming, we need to hide you better." He said. He opened the trapdoor beneath the old carpet, a storage pit under the cabin. "Get in there if you hear anything strange." He said, "It's not much, but it'll help." Sarah stared at him in surprise. "You would do that?" "For me?" Jake looked at her seriously. "You showed up bleeding and terrified," he said. "I'm not just gonna throw you out in the snow." For a moment, Sarah looked like she might cry. Not from fear, but from something else, relief. "No one has helped me before," she whispered. Jake turned away, uncomfortable. "Well, I'm not like most people," he muttered. Later that day, Jake helped Sarah clean her wounds. The blood on her leg had dried into strange silver lines. When he touched the skin gently, it felt warmer than normal, and her body seemed to glow faintly. Sarah winced, but didn't pull away. "You're not just any alien, are you?" he asked. She stayed quiet, then finally answered. "I was born to a ruling family," she said. "But I refuse to become a weapon." Jake blinked. "Wait. Are you saying you're some kind of alien princess?" Sarah looked at him, calm and tired. "I don't know what princess means on your world," she said. "But yes, I was supposed to lead them." Jake scratched his head. This was too much for a guy who just wanted quiet mountain life. "So now, you're here. Hunted, with nowhere to go." Sarah nodded slowly. "I just wanted peace." Jake stood by the window, looking at the snowy forest. "Peace is hard to find," he said. Suddenly, Sarah grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Jake froze and listened. There it was, a low hum, distant but growing louder. He stepped outside, the cold wind slapping his face. In the sky, something flashed silver and fast, vanishing behind the trees. A drone, or a ship, or something worse. He ran back in and shut the door, locking it tight. "They're here," Sarah said, her voice shaking. Jake picked up the shotgun and handed Sarah the emergency radio. "Get under the floor," he ordered. "What about you?" "I'll buy you time if I have to," he said. Sarah paused, then grabbed his hand. "Don't die for me, Jake," she whispered. Jake looked at her, nodded. "I won't." Outside, The storm was nothing compared to what was coming. The night was cold again, colder than before. Jake sat near the fire, holding a thick wool blanket, watching the trapdoor beneath his feet. Sarah was hiding down there, surrounded by dry food, old supplies, and a few tools. He had made the space as comfortable as he could, but it still felt like a dark box in the ground. Still, it was safer than being seen. That silver ship or drone he saw earlier had vanished into the clouds, but that didn't mean they were gone. Jake waited until morning before opening the trapdoor. Sarah looked up, her face pale but calm. She crawled out quietly, glancing around. "The cabin, thank you," she whispered, brushing dust from her arms. Jake handed her the blanket and a warm cup of tea. "I said I'd protect you." He said, "And I will." They sat near the fire in silence for a while. Then Sarah spoke. Again, her voice low. "You want to know where I'm from?" Jake nodded slowly. "Yeah, I do." Sarah took a deep breath, as if pulling memories from far away. "I come from a planet called Varelia," she said. "It was beautiful, full of water and glowing skies." Jake imagined it, oceans, and stars and strange cities. "But my people were not kind," she continued. "They became hungry for power, for war." Jake listened carefully, his eyes never leaving her face. "My family ruled that world, but not all of them believed." "In peace," Sarah said, her voice cracking. "I tried to stop them," she whispered, "so they marked me as a traitor." She showed him the glowing symbol on her wrist again. "It's a tracker and a punishment," she explained. "If I stay in one place too long, they find me." Jake looked at the mark, his brow furrowed. "Can we remove it?" Sarah shook her head. "If we damage it, it sends a signal." Jake leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "So they were transporting you as a prisoner?" "Yes," Sarah said. "I was inside a cryochamber on a ship, guarded, cold, asleep. But something happened," she added, her eyes distant. "A comet hit us. Or maybe it was sabotage. I don't know. But the ship broke apart in space." Jake's mouth opened slightly. "And you crashed here?" She nodded. "I woke up falling through the sky, inside an escape pod, burning, screaming." Her voice trembled now, her hands shaking. "I didn't know where I was, only that I had to run." Jake looked at her again. Really looked, the silver hair, the shimmer in her skin, the glow in her wounds. All of it was real. And now he understood she wasn't just hiding. She was a symbol of something bigger, something dangerous and hunted. "You said others are coming," Jake said. "Yes," Sarah whispered. "If they track my signal again, they will come in force." Jake stood up, walking toward the window. "So what do we do?" Sarah hesitated, then spoke softly. "There's a way to block the signal for a short time," she said, "but it requires energy from this planet." Jake turned around. "What kind of energy?" "Magnetic storms, lightning," she said. "It confuses the tracker." Jake thought for a moment, then smiled slightly. "You're lucky," he said. "There's a storm coming tonight." That night, they worked together. Jake set up a metal pole outside, tying it to wires that ran through a broken car battery and an old radio antenna. Sarah took deep breaths, focusing her mind, her hands glowing faintly as she touched the setup. "You sure this won't fry your brain?" Jake asked. Sarah smiled softly. "It won't be pleasant, but it's better than death." As the storm rolled in, lightning flashed across the sky. Thunder roared like giants fighting above the clouds. Sarah sat outside, legs crossed, eyes closed. Jake stayed nearby, shotgun in hand, heart pounding. Then it happened. Lightning struck the pole, and energy rushed through the wires. Sarah screamed, but did not move. Her whole body lit up for a moment, glowing brighter than ever. Before, then silence, smoke, and darkness. Jake rushed to her side. "Sarah." He shouted, shaking her gently. Her eyes fluttered open, tired but alive. It worked. She whispered, "They can't find me for now." Jake helped her inside, wrapping her in blankets. She rested against his shoulder, weak and pale. "You didn't have to help me," she whispered. "You're human." "I thought your kind would turn me in." Jake looked down at her. "Well," he said quietly, "maybe humans aren't all the same either." Outside, the storm raged, but inside the cabin, two lives sat quietly, one from Earth, one from the 8th. Stars, and both knew this was just the beginning. 3 days passed since the lightning storm. Jake's cabin stood strong against the cold winds. Hidden deep in the snow-covered forest, Sarah had grown stronger, her glow less faint now, her eyes a little brighter each day. But Jake noticed something strange. She hardly ever smiled. She stayed near the window most of the time, always watching the sky, like she was waiting for something or someone. Jake walked in with firewood, brushing snow off his shoulders. "You okay?" he asked, setting the logs down. Sarah turned slowly, her voice quiet. "I felt something," she said, "a shift. Like someone pierced the veil." Jake blinked. "What veil?" Sarah hesitated, then pointed upward. "The signal I blocked, it's breaking." She said, "They're coming, Jake." A chill ran down his spine. "You sure?" She nodded slowly. Jake looked around the cabin, small, wooden, no weapons, except a shotgun and 2 knives. They weren't ready for this, not for aliens, not for a war. "Then we'll have to move," he said. "We can't fight them here." Sarah stood up, swaying slightly. "No," she said. "They'll expect that." She reached into her satchel and pulled out a small black stone. It glowed faintly when she touched it. "This is an ancient device," she said. "It doesn't need power, only will." Jake leaned in, confused. "What does it do?" "It hides," she answered. "For a little while. But only if we stay completely still." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Still like how long?" "Until they pass," Sarah replied. "If they don't find heat, movement, or sound, they might move on." That night, Jake turned off every source of light. No fire, no electricity, no sound. The cabin was cold and dark. He and Sarah sat silently near the center of the room, the stone resting between them, glowing softly like a heartbeat. Even the wind seemed to hush in fear. Then came the hum, not like a drone or plane, but something deeper. It rattled the windows, shook the snow off the roof. Jake held his breath as a blue light passed over the cabin walls. Sarah reached out and grabbed his hand, her skin ice cold. "They're scanning," she whispered without sound, her lips barely moving. Outside, a long shadow moved through the trees. Not human, not machine. Its legs were too long. Its body shimmered like a mirror. Jake stared in disbelief as it moved with grace. Sniffing the air like a wolf, it walked around the cabin slowly, pausing at the front door. Jake's heart pounded so loud he thought it would give them away. But the creature moved on, vanishing into the woods again. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Then came a second light, this time red. A different shape floated above the cabin round, metallic, humming. Like a heartbeat, Jake watched as it hovered, then extended small arms, scanning the ground. The stone between them pulsed faster. Reacting to the energy, Sarah's face twisted with pain. "It's trying to read our presence," she whispered. "It's sensing fear." Jake reached over and held her shoulders. "Don't think," he whispered. "Just feel the silence." The red drone paused, then turned, slowly floating away. Silence returned. But the air still buzzed with danger. Sarah let go of his hand and fell back. Exhausted, Jake caught her, laying her down gently on the rug. Her skin was too pale. Her breathing was rough. "That stone took too much from you," he said. "You need rest." But Sarah shook her head. "There's no more time," she said. "They're testing us." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. They don't want to destroy you, she said. Not yet. They want to see who's protecting me. Jake stood, angry now, so they're playing games. Sarah looked at him with tired eyes. To them, this is a hunt. She whispered, and we are prey. Jake grabbed his coat and boots. I'm not going to wait here like a rabbit in a hole, he said. Where are you going? To set traps, he replied. If they come again, I want them to regret it. He walked out into the snow, his breath turning into fog. Behind the cabin, he set up wire, sharp glass pieces, and buried spikes from an old tool shed. It wasn't much, but it was something. He returned 2 hours later, frozen but determined. Sarah was waiting by the fire, wrapped in blankets, her eyes heavy with worry. I thought you left, she said. Jake shook his head. I told you, he said softly. I'm not going to let them take you. Sarah looked at him for a long time. Then she whispered something in her language. It sounded soft, beautiful, and ancient. What did you say? Jake asked. She smiled weakly. It means you're now part of my fate. Outside, the forest went still again, but deep in the sky above, something was watching, getting closer. The next morning, the sun peeked through the thick clouds, casting a soft glow on the snowy woods. Jake opened the door slowly and looked outside. There were no tracks in the snow, no shadows in the trees. It seemed quiet, again, but not peaceful. Something was waiting just beyond what eyes could see. He could feel it in the air. Back inside, Sarah was sitting near the fireplace. Her legs folded under her, eyes closed, her breathing was slow. Her hands resting on her knees, glowing softly. She was meditating or something close to it. Jake sat down across from her and watched quietly. There was still so much about her that didn't make sense. She looked fragile, but he'd seen her glow like lightning. She looked afraid, but she had faced death and kept going. Sarah opened her eyes, and for a moment they shimmered like stars. I remember things when I close my eyes, she said. Things I wish I didn't. Jake leaned in. Like what? She looked into the fire, not answering right away. Then she spoke, voice low and heavy. When I was young, I was told I would be a ruler someday, she said. My voice could command fleets. My decisions could shape planets. Jake raised an eyebrow. So? You really are a princess. She nodded, but there was no pride in her face. Only sadness. I refused the crown, she said. Not because I was weak, but because I saw what that power had become. Jake listened, silent. My people created weapons that could erase cities in seconds, Sarah continued. And they wanted me to lead them into war. I said no, she whispered, and they called me a traitor. Jake stared at her, stunned. So they locked you up. He said slowly, because you chose peace. They said I was unfit to lead, she replied. But really, they were afraid I would stop them. She pulled back her sleeve and looked at the glowing mark on her wrist. This mark, she said, was once a symbol of royalty. They turned it into a tracker. Jake stood up, pacing across the wooden floor. So you were supposed to rule a whole alien world, he said, and now you're hiding in my cabin. Eating soup from a can, Sarah smiled weakly. I'd take this over a throne of lies, she whispered. Jake stopped walking. Why didn't you tell me all this before? I didn't want you to treat me like someone special, she said. I just wanted to survive. Jake looked at her seriously. You're not just surviving, he said. You're trying to protect others, even if they don't know it. She blinked slowly, surprised by his words. No one's ever said that to me before, she said softly, just then. A sound broke the moment, a distant crack. Like ice breaking or branches snapping under pressure, Jake grabbed the shotgun and rushed to the window. He scanned the trees, eyes sharp. There between the branches a flash of metal. He ducked down quickly, his heart thudding in his chest. They're watching us, he whispered. Sarah stood up, her glow dimming with fear. They're testing us again, she said, trying to see if I'll run. Jake turned to her. Will you? She looked at him, her voice firm this time. No, she said. I'm tired of running. They stayed low for the next hour, not moving, barely breathing, but nothing attacked. The metal shape disappeared, and the forest grew quiet again. Jake finally stood up, rubbing his neck. This is going to keep happening, isn't it? Sarah nodded. They won't stop until I'm captured or dead. Jake looked down at his hands, calloused from chopping wood and fixing fences. He never thought those hands would one day protect an alien exile from a galactic empire. But now he couldn't imagine doing anything else. Sarah looked at him carefully. You could still turn me in, she said. You could get a reward or maybe save your own life. Jake scoffed. I didn't save you just to throw you away. He said, besides, you're not the only one who's tired. Sarah reached out and touched his hand gently. Her fingers were warm this time, not cold. You're strange for a human, she said with a small smile. Jake chuckled. You're the one with glowing eyes and space magic, and I'm the strange one? They both laughed, just for a moment, but it felt real. Then her smile faded. There's something else you need to know, she said. Jake leaned forward. What? If they catch me? They won't just take me, she said quietly. They'll destroy everything I touched. Jake's eyes widened, you mean? This place? Me? She nodded slowly. In their minds, mercy is a disease, she said, and you've already caught it. Jake's jaw tightened. Then, we'll fight, he said. Sarah looked at him with fear and admiration, even if it means your death. Jake didn't blink, even if it means theirs, outside. The clouds gathered again. Something was coming in. It would test every word they just spoke. The sky turned dark long before nightfall. Black clouds gathered over the mountains, swirling like a storm was being pulled from another world. Jake stood outside, tightening the traps he had buried along the tree line. He knew what was coming now. No more tests, no more silent watchers. They were done waiting. They were coming. For Sarah. And they weren't going to knock on the door this time. Inside the cabin, Sarah knelt near the fireplace, drawing strange symbols in the ash. Her hands glowed faintly as she whispered something in her native tongue. Old words, ancient protection. Spells from her world. Jake didn't understand any of it. But her voice made the air feel thick with energy. You think that'll stop them? He asked as he walked back in, wiping sweat from his forehead. It won't stop them, she said, but it might slow them down. Jake loaded the shotgun and checked the hunting rifle. 2 guns, a few bullets, some traps, and a cabin made of old wood that was all they had. Still want to stay? He asked her, half smiling. Sarah looked up, her eyes glowing softly. I've run all my life, she said. If I die tonight, I want it to be standing, not crawling. The first sign came at dusk. A low hum in the sky, deeper than thunder, more hollow than wind. Jake stepped onto the porch and looked up. A black ship hovered above the trees, silent but terrifying. It didn't look like it flew, looked like it floated, like it belonged somewhere far from Earth. Here we go, Jake muttered, raising the rifle to his shoulder. Then came the lights red. Sharp beams that sliced through the forest, scanning every tree. One light hit the cabin wall, sending sparks across the wood. Jake fired a shot into the trees, and the light disappeared, but now they knew he was armed. Sarah stood behind him, her hair blowing in the strange wind. They sent collectors, she said, her voice shaking. They don't speak, they don't feel, they just take. Suddenly, something crashed into the back wall of the cabin. Boomwood exploded as a drone forced its way in. It was tall, spider-like, with black metal limbs and a glowing blue core. Jake turned and fired, the shotgun blast ripping one of its legs off. But it kept coming. electricity sparking from its body. Sarah screamed as she threw her hands forward, a blast of energy flying from her palms. The drone stopped mid-air, shivered, then collapsed into pieces on the floor. Jake looked at her, stunned. "I thought you said you were weak." "I was," she said, breathing hard. "Not anymore." More drones came to 3, then 5. Crawling down from the ship above, like insects, Jake ran to the front door and kicked it shut, locking it with a metal bar. But the drones didn't care about doors. They started crawling on the roof, trying to break through from above. "We need to get underground," he shouted. Sarah shook her head. "If we hide, we'll be buried." Then she looked at him, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "But if we fight together, we have a chance." Jake nodded, heart pounding. They stood back to back, the cabin shaking as the enemy tried to tear it apart. The traps Jake had set outside started to trigger loud explosions, breaking metal, screaming drones, one by one. The attackers fell, but more kept coming. Sarah raised both hands, her entire body lighting up. The air around her shimmered, bending like heat waves. She released a wave of light that pushed back 3 drones at once, slamming them into trees. Jake reloaded and fired at anything that moved. But then it happened. A sound unlike any other, high-pitched, metallic, and painful. Sarah dropped to her knees, hands over her ears. Jake turned and saw the source. A larger machine had landed in the clearing. Twice the size of the cabin, its body covered in spinning spikes and glowing blue lights. It released a pulse that made the air crackle. Jake fell to the floor, his vision blurry, his bones vibrating. Sarah tried to stand, but her knees gave out. The machine pointed a beam at her, ready to capture or kill. Jake crawled forward, dragging the shotgun with him. "Not today," he growled. He fired at the glowing core wands, twice, 3 times. The last shot hit something important, and the machine sparked violently. But it didn't stop. It turned its beam toward Jake, charging up to fire. And then Sarah stood, eyes pure white now, her body pulsing with energy. She screamed not in fear, but in fury. A shockwave of pure light burst from her body, throwing the machine back into the trees. The forest lit up for miles, the ground shook, and every drone nearby collapsed at once. Jake covered his face from the light when he looked up again. Sarah had fallen to the ground, unconscious. He rushed to her side, holding her close. "Sarah," he whispered, "you're safe now. They're gone." But she didn't move, her skin cold, her breathing shallow. Jake lifted her gently and carried her to the bed. Outside, the smoke cleared, and the black ship retreated into the clouds. Damaged, defeated, but not destroyed. Inside the cabin, Jake knelt beside Sarah, holding her hand. "You saved me," he said softly. "Now it's my turn to save you." The fire crackled softly in the corner, its light dancing on the wooden walls of the cabin. Snow fell quietly outside, covering the wreckage from the battle like a fresh white blanket. The broken drones were scattered across the clearing, some half buried in the snow, others still smoking, but inside the cabinet was calm, quiet, and full of something strange. Hope. Jake sat beside Sarah, who still lay on the bed, her body weak but alive. He had wrapped her in warm blankets, placed a hot cloth on her forehead, and kept the fire burning through the night. Every few hours, he'd speak to her, whispering, "You're safe now, Sarah. I'm right here." She hadn't opened her eyes yet, but her breathing had grown stronger, and Jake refused to leave her side. By morning, the sky had cleared. Golden light spilled through the window, warming the cabin with a soft glow. Jake was half asleep when he felt her fingers twitch in his hand. He blinked, sat up quickly, and looked at her. Sarah's eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly. "You're here," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jake let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Yeah, he said, smiling. Still here. Sarah tried to sit up, and Jake helped her slowly. Her strength was returning, but her body trembled. What happened? She asked, looking around the cabin. You saved us, Jake said. You burned half the forest with that light of yours. She blinked, remembering. I thought I would die, she whispered. Jake shook his head gently. You didn't, he said. You survived and so did I, thanks to you. They sat in silence for a few minutes, just listening to the fire and the sound of the wind outside. Then Sarah looked at Jake with a different kind of expression, softer, more vulnerable. I was ready to give up, she said quietly. I thought no one in this galaxy would ever care again. Jake reached over and touched her hand. Maybe that's why the stars brought you here, he said, to find someone who still does. Later that day, Sarah stood outside for the first time since the attack. She wore Jake's thick coat, her silver hair blowing in the breeze. She looked around at the snow, the trees, the broken machines, and then up at the sky. They'll come back, she said softly. Maybe not today, but someday. Jake stepped beside her, arms crossed. Let them, he said. We'll be ready. Sarah turned to him. You say we? Like this is your fight now? Jake smiled. It was never just your fight, he said. Not after. You knocked on my door, she laughed gently, the sound soft and warm. I didn't knock, she said. I broke in. Jake chuckled. Best break-in I've ever had. They spent the next few days cleaning up the cabin and burning the remains of the machines. Sarah used her energy to plant small symbols in the ground wards. She called them that could confuse future trackers. Jake rebuilt the broken parts of the roof, reinforced the walls, and added a hidden shelter beneath the floor. The cabin was no longer just a home, it was now a fortress, a place of protection, of survival, of unity. And then, one quiet evening, Sarah placed something on the table, a silver pendant glowing faintly, shaped like a star with sharp edges. Jake picked it up, turning it in his hand. What is this? A seal, she said. From my world, it means chosen protector. Jake looked at her, confused. But I'm not a soldier. I'm not royal, he said. You are now. Sarah replied, smiling. By my law and by my heart. Jake felt the weight of her words. She wasn't just thanking him. She was naming him, giving him a title from a world he had never seen. You sure you want to do that? He asked. Sarah stepped closer, placing her hand on his chest. I'm sure, she said. You didn't just save me, Jake. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? Home, she whispered, that night, as the stars lit up the sky above the trees. Jake and Sarah stood outside the cabin together, two survivors from two worlds. Now bound by something stronger than fear, the galaxy was still dangerous. Enemies still hunted her, but here, in this place, something new had started. Not war, not escape, but a life. A life they would build together quietly, defiantly, and side by side. The cabin, once lonely and forgotten, had become something else. A place of warmth, a symbol of peace, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of a kingdom no empire could ever destroy.